and it let out this blood-curdling, guttural scream.
On the side of the road, he sees a deer carcass and something eating on it, which he thought was a bear. And as the lights hit it, it stood up. And, like, this gives me chills talking about it. He said it stood up and it had the face of a man.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show. I'm your host, Bryan Sawyer, coming at you. This is episode 82 with Jim Powell, man. So excited to have him on. Once again, I met him through the NCI podcast show, and as I got listening to Jim, I'm just like, man, I got to have him on my show. I just recently had Jay Fountain and Nick Valente of the International Dogman Project on, and I had them on, and now I'm having Jim on for a reason, for a time to sober up. Look, everybody out there, I love all of you. We're all entitled to our opinions of what these cryptids are, paranormal, whether it be aliens, Bigfoot, Dogman, all of that. But I kind of had this kind of check in my spirit, like, hey, man, we still got to be careful. We don't know exactly what these things are. If you want to believe that Bigfoot is a big, cuddly teddy bear, I'm cool with that. All I want to do is say, hey, that's possible. I've been in close proximity. I've had them trailing me back to the camp. They did no wrong to me. They just did their Sierra sounds right afterwards. Let me and Matt chill out and left us alone, and they called out to the rest of their clan members. Yeah, they could have killed us when we were out there in their nesting area. So there are, I guess, what you could call some good experiences. I've had multiple experiences like that, but I'm always careful. I always kind of go back to those roots to where, like, as a Christian, I have to say, hey, man, we got to be careful still. We don't know exactly if some are good and some are bad. It seems that way with some of our encounters, but I wanted to kind of sober up. That's why I had Jay Fountain on and Nick Valente the last episode, and now I got Jim Powell on, man. I love his perspective. He when I sat there and I listened to him, I'm like, yes, I need this. I need this right now. So we're going to go ahead and bring Jim in right now.
Hey, blowing me up hard, bro. What's up, man? How you doing?
Oh, man, doing good. Glad to have my voice is back. I got to edit this episode because I choked on the coffee. I've had walking pneumonia for the past 2 weeks. Lost my voice for a solid week. Just now starting to get it back. So, yeah, I got to be careful with every little thing or I start choking to death. So we'll edit that bit out. But, man, we're going to get right to it, brother. First of all, thank you. We do this stuff, and it's kind of, we carry this on our backs. We got families, we got jobs, and then we try to squeeze this in. And, right now, I don't see my bank account getting fatter from doing this. In fact, I see money leaving my bank account from doing this.
Bro.
Right. But what we got to do is we've got to disclose some of the information that we're finding out. As I told you before, man, in the green room, I mean, you don't know me really well. I've got the acting background. I've been an actor here in the Detroit metropolitan area for a good solid 20 years. Been on set with some of the largest Hollywood films, and then all the way down to the small independents, man. I've done stage productions for one person at the Juvie Hall, one kid at the Juvie Hall, and then I've been on the stage at Fox Theater with a packed house. So I've got an extensive background in the entertainment business, and then this topic came along and kind of fell into my lap, dude. And man, so I'm setting you up to sell your story, but I want you to know a little bit about me. So I had moved to my dad's house. He passed away about the same time we had the famous Cass River crossing here in Michigan of a Bigfoot, which I later found out was a hoax. And people got mad at me about that. But dude, I want to know if it's real or not. This is in a way, this is just entertainment for everybody, for the general population who's listening to this podcast show right now. But it's also very serious. So when we're dealing with this, if I have any information that I think is not right, if it's a hoax and everything I see it's a hoax and all the information I found out, I want to shout that out to the audience, you know. So some people about that Cass River crossing, like the kayaker still believes it's real. He took the video. He still believes it real. What had happened is I found out from the townsfolk of Vassar. They contacted me when I was out there getting ready to film an episode, Jim. I'm out there just kind of surveying, doing some location scouting, and I do a fun video on YouTube, and all of a sudden all these people start contacting me going, and this is what I want to hear. Hey, you idiot, that was a hoax. And I'm like, well, how do you know? Well, because my daughter's boyfriend hoaxed it. Oh, yeah? Well, what's his name? Okay, thank you very much. Then 2 more people contact me saying the same thing. And then another guy contacts me and says, hey, this guy will probably be trying to get a hold of you, saying he saw it or whatever, and he'll try to get some money out of you. Just like that, this guy contacts me. He's trying, hey, is this paid if I do an episode with you? And I go, wait, what's your name? And he's like, well, this is my name. I'm like, oh, you're the hoaxer. And he replies, how'd you know? So it's like, okay, people, if you're going to be out there hoaxing Bigfoot stuff, don't waste our time. And you like to call us eyewitnesses crazy, but actually you're the crazy ones. So right back at you. So Jim, that's how I got started. We started shooting kind of like a TV pilot series. That's when I met a true, authentic Bigfoot eyewitness by the name of Aaron Young. We were filming his eyewitness encounter, and just to see how his face and his physical attributes changed as he was explaining his Bigfoot sighting, that's when the bell went off, and I went, it's not that I didn't believe in Bigfoot, it was just, you're skeptical. But that was the day when I went, holy crap, I think these things are real. And then I had the fairy sighting in my house. My dad had passed away. The house has been sitting vacant for a couple of years. I moved in to fix it up, sell it, flip it, whatever. I'm still living here now. Can't let it go with all these connections. There's a fairy right in front of my face, dude. And so that started me on this whole paranormal thing. And now for everybody at home, just a little reminder, we are now on Roku through our new app called Bigfoot TV, all things paranormal, right back there. And then, of course, we're on all the social media platforms. Now, with all that said, enough about me. Jim, man, so excited to get you on our show. I'm going to shut up now. You tell everybody all about yourself, where you're coming from, where they can contact you, and let's hear your story.
Okay, well, I've got a lot of stories, but before I do all that, you kind of tickled my tism just a little bit. So, hold on. First of all, you remember how a couple weeks ago everybody was like losing their heads about PG film maybe being fake, maybe not being fake, and all the craziness, like people just coming out of the woodwork to attack the guy that was saying it was fake and all that?
Right.
So that story reminds me a lot of that. And before I get too far, folks out there in YouTube land, Roku land, subscribe, wherever you're at, I just want you guys to know something first, is that no matter what footage it is, if it's faked or not, it does not matter. That will never take away from your own experience. If you have actually experienced this stuff and there is no doubt in your mind, ain't no debunking gonna take that from you. So I mean, if you're just gonna hold on to that and it suddenly somehow defines you, good on you. However, be careful. Don't let that become some kind of an idol at the same time.
Good stuff.
Don't get too lost in the sauce, as they say. Like, have a little bit of perspective on there, like, because as an experiencer, I've seen things. I've seen Bigfoot, Dogman, aliens, shadow creatures. Lord, so much stuff at this point in time that I always say I should have been struck by lightning. But before I get into that stuff, we'll go back to what you asked me to do. I'm sorry for my little squirrel tangent there.
No, you're great, man. I love it. That's why I got you on.
Well, thanks. But so anyways, my name is Jim Powell. I am the host of the Night's Watch podcast on YouTube. You can find me on other things too, but I don't keep that other things as up to date. But so go check me out on the YouTube for now. Let's see here. I'm also a cameraman for Relic Films with Greg and all them. I've been with them for a little while. Let's see here. What else? A few other things I'm kind of like quasi members of and stuff like that. But until paperwork officially gets signed, I won't make your previous guest upset because spoiler alert. But neither here or there.
No worries.
But yeah, that's me. I'm just a normal dude. Like there's nothing special about me at all. Like at all. I mean, I was on TV once, if that counts. I was on.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, I was on the newest season of Monster Quest. I was on season 5, episode 8. So you can see me there.
That's fantastic, bro.
Yeah. I was really surprised. It took me by surprise, like hardcore. Like I remember I went out there and did my interview with them, and it was months and months and months before I heard anything. I was like, well, I don't know what show it's going to be, but I had a good time. They were nice. And finally the trailer came out for the new season. I was watching it, and my buddy Martin Groves came on. I was like, oh, hey, Martin's on. That's cool. And he was talking, and like the hotel he was at was like the same room that I stayed in. I was like, wait a second. And I called them up. I was like, hey, did we do Monster Quest? They're like, yeah, surprise. I was like, awesome. I wish I would have known that. But anyways.
That's fantastic, man. It's truly a feather in the cap, man.
I guess it kind of came full circle for me because, you know, I grew up always interested in this stuff, man. Like, you know, as a little kid, I was watching this stuff. I don't have the, you know, In Search of memories that, you know, the generation after me has, you know, but I watched all the other stuff, the Monster Quest especially, and Destination Truth and Unknowns, you know, all that stuff that I could consume in like early 2000s, late 90s. Like that was kind of my era, you know, and just growing up as a kid, I was like, this is real, you know, and nobody can convince me otherwise. I'm like, no, they'd be like, it's not, it's just a dude in a suit. I'm just like, have you guys ever looked at a globe? Like, it's a pretty big place. I'm like, well, yeah, well, maybe not. I'm like, okay. And, you know, it's funny that this was the opinion of my family at the time, because on both sides of my family, they've had crazy stuff happen to them. Like I've heard stories from my mother, like sitting out at her grandfather's lake house at Lake Erie down there by Detroit, close to you.
Yes, sir.
And hearing stories about UFOs going in and out of the lake.
Yep.
You know, my father's oldest brother got chased out of the woods, him and his buddy, by what they called the devil. Here where I live now, currently in Alabama. I'm from Alabama, by the way, everybody. My other uncle, who basically inherited, or wait, what's the word? Sorry, my brain's not working. We inherited the land from him here after he passed, and you know, during the Fife UFO flap of the late 80s, early 90s, you know, like one touchdown in the field, like 1,000 yards from where I'm sitting. Like I played in this grassless circle of a spot when I was a kid. So, you know, like I'd heard these stories, but yet that was their opinion at the time. And I was just like, come on, guys. Like, are y'all just trying to not scare me or something? Like, granted, I'm 8 or 9, but I'm like, come on. This is seriously? Like, I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics y'all are doing, but it's a thing, you know? And that was good enough. And, you know, I always kept interest in it and followed the shows when I had time to watch the shows. And, you know, it was interesting. And several of them of that era, I won't give out names, kind of put a bad taste in my mouth too. I was just like, really? This is how you get the giant monkey monster? Oh, okay, that's cool.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, shoot, some of them have even put out giant light bulbs around a cage to catch a Mothman, if memory strikes me correctly. And
Oh my! You're kidding
and
me?
they
I hadn't
caught
heard
it,
that
and
one
they
yet. That's
oh yeah, they
crazy.
caught it, and they all were in a line with shotguns shooting it. I'm sure you can figure out what show that was. But all of a sudden, it breaks out of the cage off camera. Like, okay, yeah,
Actually, me and my boys used to watch that one and laugh. Yeah.
yeah, it is good for that. It's good for
Yep.
that. But you know, despite all that, it made me dig kind of deeper and want to be like, look, I know there's something more to this. I grew up with a Christian background, and during my late teens, early to almost late 20s, I kind of fell away, and I started to kind of go down a little bit path of, whatever. Like, I need to figure this stuff out, and I'm hearing all this from different directions and hearing about different theories. Ancient Aliens is on, and I'm like, this is making a lot of sense. And granted, it does make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I still love those guys, like, and what they're saying. And truth be told, I get along with fellers and gals like that more than I do somebody that comes from like the traditional aper side of things, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, we're talking about the exact same thing. We're just using different adjectives and nouns to describe the same thing.
Bingo.
So we're really kind of on the same page. It's like, let's just change a couple words and we're good, But anyways, hearing this stuff, I was like, I want to know more. Like, I need to go down like these deep dives and find this stuff out. So I'm doing all this. And eventually, I stumble on an episode of Joe Rogan where he has on Dr. Stephen Greer. I don't know if he's been on since that. I don't know. I don't keep up with Dr. Greer. I'm not a fan anymore.
Gotcha.
But he starts talking about the CE5 stuff, and I'm like, man, this sounds like the most hippiest, dippiest stuff I've ever heard in my life. Like, he's talking and it's making me want to get bendy, man. And I'm just like, what? Really, dork? But at the same time, he's like showing pictures and like talking about this stuff. I'm like, this might sound crazy, but I can't deny what he's showing and talking about. All these, briefings and skiffs and stuff that he's had with like really important people. And I'm just like, maybe there's something like to all this nonsense.
Right.
And so I decided to try it. I was in college. My wife had just graduated. She was a nurse working night shifts at a hospital that was like an hour away. So I'm basically by myself every night until she gets on day shift. So I'm like, well, I mean, I ain't got nothing else to do. Why not give this whole CE5 thing a shot? So I did.
Mm.
And, I had some interesting experiences through it. Like, essentially, like I downloaded the app and tried some of that, but it really wasn't doing much for me. But he had like a guided meditation series on YouTube of how to like make contact and project yourself out there. It was basically like astral projection.
Right.
I don't really know the correct lingo out there, so if people out there do, sorry. But I'm just a redneck in Alabama. Sorry, guys. Even though I was born in a little suburb outside of Toledo, Ohio, I'm just a redneck.
Mm.
But I tried this, and then after like the guided part of these video series like stopped, and it was just silence. I felt like I was able to actually do it, like and get out there and have these conversations with these things eventually. And I like I said, I talked to several, but each time I come back, I kind of have like the same conclusion of, wow, that was really interesting, but how do I know that was real? Like, how do I not know? I mean, is it just an overactive imagination? Like, there's nothing concrete that I can really pull back from this, and just other than just being like, oh, that's pretty neat. You know, some of them were polite and kind of funny. Some of them were very informative, and some of them were just plain old, straight up mean, to use good words.
Wow.
And I just didn't really know what to think about it. You know, I will say one detail though, like the one that was the most talkative. That was the one that I really should have read the room and took in the red flags of what it was saying, because the majority of them wouldn't let me remember all the details when I came back, but this one let me remember like the most. And I remember just being so excited talking to it and asking it all these questions. And one of the questions I asked it was, do you guys believe in God? You know, and this thing basically laughed at me. He's like, of course. Look around you. How can you not believe? That is a direct quote from that thing. Like, I remember that specifically. How could you not believe? I was like, you know, that got me excited, even though I was, you know, backslidden, I guess, at that time. Yeah, grace and all that. But, you know, I wasn't the same person that you're talking to now, basically. But it still got me excited.
Sure. No, I got you.
You know, I was like, oh, that's so cool. On this planet, we had a guy named Jeet, and that's all I got. Before, like, the presence of this thing was just overwhelming, and it just held up a hand at me and stopped me completely. You know, and it basically said, I don't care to hear about your theologies. Just know that if there was a guy who came and talked about love and nothing else, probably should follow that guy. I was like, oh, and on face value, that's not bad advice at all. You know, these things, I noticed, like, you know, hindsight being 2020, love to talk and deal in half truths. So that's good information. But the fact that it recoiled and that it's visibly got angry right as I was about to say the name Jesus should have been the red flag. But it wasn't. But anyways, you know, like, there's all kind of stuff that I asked that thing, and I could go into details, but maybe on another episode. You guys are out there in your audience are just meeting me, and you guys don't want to be like, this hippie over here talking to aliens.
I'm loving it, man. We have, you know, we got to sober up sometimes. We get enveloped as humans. We get enveloped in our emotions sometimes. You know, I got a picture of my boys I look at, and I tear up, and you know, that's how we're made. And in a way, I believe we were made to be this way on purpose by God through Jesus Christ in a simple form to bring him joy and pleasure so that he can have a family unit. And I think what happens is sometimes we just try to get too complex, and these forces that we're now talking about, they know that we're very simple, emotionally based. They know they can pull on our heartstrings and maybe sway us in the wrong direction. And this is when I say, okay, look, I love everybody out there, but every so often check yourself, sober up, make sure you're not, quote unquote, enveloped in a hue of love that's a bunch of bull crap. That is not the true love of God through his son Jesus Christ, because whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, that is the ultimate hierarchy. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. That is it. It's like I always tell people, hey, I can drive to work every day. And if every day I keep blowing through the same stop sign, sooner or later, there are going to be consequences. Sooner or later, I'm either going to get a ticket, I'm going to get in an accident, I'm going to kill somebody, or I'm going to get killed myself. There are going to be consequences sooner or later. And people, this is a hard pill to swallow. I think many times, Jim, or most of the time, we confuse God's silence or his quietness for weakness. No, he is very on top of things.
Oh yeah.
He wants us to have a free will. That's why he gives us a lot of slack in our leashes, so to speak. And we are supposed to make our own choices, good choices. And
Correct.
I think what you're hitting on, and I'm probably getting way ahead of myself. It's like, look, there was a realm out there before mankind. And,
Mm.
however you want to break it down, large part of that realm defected from heaven, defected from God the Father. The Bible says that God created all things by him and through him and for him, talking
Mm.
about his son, about his great love for his son. And
Right.
that love is supposed to come down through Jesus Christ to us, and we're all supposed to be a family unit. But for whatever reason, there's a large sect of that heavenly realm that decided they didn't want any part of that system. And so that's what we're dealing with nowadays. But go ahead.
Correct.
Go ahead.
No, you're doing great, man. As far as that goes, if God is love and we're told that he created us in his image, what does that say for us?
Mhm.
That means that we are his image bearers. You want me to put that in different adjectives and nouns, all kind of people all throughout history have basically said the same thing. I mean, shoot, just look at the common phrase as above, so below,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
God has his image bearers up there and it has them down here where we are.
Mm.
And that's us. So that's why we're supposed to be neighborly and love our neighbors as ourselves.
Good
Right.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
But so anyways, um with all those experiences that I had, like I kind of came away with it just being, like I said, just like pretty neat, but nothing concrete. I don't know. Who knows? But I did it for multiple nights during that week, and the one night that I didn't do it was the night that my wife was actually home and had to transition back to day shift, so she had to get some sleep. So I didn't get to do it that night. And this is when suddenly those experiences have a bit of concrete to them. And, we get woken up in the middle of the night by something outside of our window. And I don't know what it is. She don't know what it is. It sounds like, I don't know, two coons fighting or maybe like a Tasmanian devils, just the most god awful racket and rah, 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 rah kind of thing. And my first thought is basically that my outside dog is attacking my family of pet raccoons that lived across the driveway that hung out with me at the campfire when
Mm-hmm.
she was at work. So I was like, oh no. And then she's upset. She's like, Jim, go get the dog. I gotta get some sleep. Make it quit. Like, I'll go get it. And I'm concerned. I don't want none of my critters to get hurt because a coon will mess up a dog real quick. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll go out there. So I go out there and I'm looking around, calling the dog. There's nothing, calling the dog, walking around. There's just literally nothing, and I'm just kind of like befuddled at this point because it sounded like this was just right at the window. That there's no tracks in the dew. There's, not a sound anywhere. And I'm just like, what is going on? But, I did my part. I did a walk around the property and was out there probably 15 minutes or so, but I couldn't find the dog or anything else. I'm like, well, this is weird, but I don't know. I can't find a dog, so time to go to bed. So that's what I do. Walk back in, lay down. Wife, did you get the dog? Oh, yeah, I handled it. It's good. I got this. Go back to bed.
It's all good.
It's all good. Your man's a dingo, man. He taking care of you. But we're laying down, and I don't know if we go back to sleep or not, but it doesn't seem like it's no time at all. And, to me, it's like I just blinked and all of a sudden it's happening again.
Mm.
You know, the same racket right outside the window. And this time the wife is just so mad. So mad. You know, she's accentuating every single word with a punch, you know, just go outside, get that dog. And I'm okay. I'll go get the dog. Don't come back here till you get the dog. Okay, I got it. So this time, instead of just being in my slippers and underwear, I grab a flashlight. I am prepared now.
You are armed.
That is correct. I am ready for a fairly long stakeout. You know, this would be kind of like summer, early springish. I think I want to say it was actually March, so it'd be about springish. So it was you know, not cold outside here in Alabama. You know, the night is normally alive with tree frogs and racket. But when I go outside, there's none of that. It is just a dead, eerie silence. So I'm like, okay, let's get that dog. Flashlight on. And I do the same thing. I go all around that place. I'm looking by all the tractors, all the farm implements underneath, you know, our trailer, the trailer that's in the back, in the barns. Like I'm looking everywhere. You know, I'm on a mission. I am determined to get that dog. But once again, I'm coming up empty. There's nothing anywhere. Not a sign of anything. You know, and I basically give up. It's like, I don't know what else I can do. Sure, I can go trouncing through the woods, but I don't know that my silk boxer shorts are going to handle briars very well. You know, plus, it seems a little hazardous. You know, I don't know if I want to experience that. So I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I gotta go back in.
Yeah, and this is my one good pair.
Yeah, this is my lucky pair, actually. I love those pair. Yeah, those things were nice. Silky and zebra striped. They were pretty cool. But, you know, I was like, I don't know. Like, I guess I gotta go back in and wait for it to happen again and maybe survive my wife. So, you know, I go back in, and as I'm approaching and basically going around like the side of my trailer, like as I'm fixing to turn the corner to get to the door, I noticed that in the tree line, maybe somewhere between maybe 300 and 500 feet up at the most, like it seems like it's actually not too far above tree level, really. But, you know, memory is what memory is. So memory in distance, I don't know. But this thing was about the size of like a softball or maybe a baseball, but somewhere in between there. And it's glowing up there, and it's like, the best way I know to describe the color is warm white, as in like the light bulb color.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's bordering on orange. It's pretty close. And that thing is just hanging out up there. And granted, I've heard all the stories, you know, of what happened here in Fife. You know, like, shoot, my wife's father actually has an insane story that happened during that time. And I'm pretty sure that his father, you know, my wife's grandfather, is responsible actually for getting the government involved in stopping the flap that happened at that time. But that's a different story. The point is, when I see that, all those stories come rushing back to me, you know, and I remember saying out loud, like, I don't know what you are, but I definitely don't want any part of you or whatever you got going on. So I finished going around that corner, and I'm fixing to turn in and go into the house. And that's when I make the worst mistake of my life. I take my flashlight and I shine it up the driveway. And standing at the end of the driveway is something that's, gosh, every bit of 7 feet, probably more tall. You know, and it's so weird, man. Like, granted, I don't have the best flashlight in the world at this time. It is LED. It's a It's a floodlight, not a spotlight, but it is very bright, and it's reaching out there pretty good, and it's lighting everything up well enough for me to see. But this thing is just blacker than the blackest black. It's almost like it's just absorbing the lights. And it's strange too, because like, even though it's nothing but just pure pitch flat black, I can still make out like definition and, like volume, I guess you would say, like, like depth perception. Like I can tell this thing has like high cheekbones, right? And a really narrow pointed jaw.
Wow.
It's got a bigger head, but it's not like what you see with like a typical gray, like on TV, right? I mean, it's bigger, but it's not bulbous. It's fairly proportionate. It's got a long neck, real wide and flat shoulders, extremely long arms. Like I remember the fingertips, like hanging down well past its knees.
Wow.
3 fingers and a thumb. The fingers are every bit of 10 to 12 inches long. Its arms are very spindly. I can make out the definition in its chest. Like I can basically count the ribs in this thing. I remember the one feature that kind of really struck me, though, at least at this point in time, was just how skinny it was. It's like somebody took latex, or I don't know, maybe it's like some leather or something, and just stretched it over like a skeleton that's hanging up in science class, right? Because this thing is so skinny, I feel like I could wrap my hands around its stomach easily. Like it's almost like something is just stretched over a spine and there's nothing else in there. But, we keep going down. Like I see the pelvis, it's, heart-shaped like our bones are. And once we get to the legs, this is where it actually has muscle definition. It's got pretty thick legs. And what's interesting about it is like basically like where our ankle is, there's an extra digit that kind of comes out before it comes to foot. I guess like the best visual would be like a hawk on a dog, like their leg, their back leg. Or
Right.
Probably more accurate would be like some kind of a bug.
Mm.
And then it's got a larger foot. But essentially, this is what's standing at the end of the driveway. And I don't really see the definition in its face at this point, because it's not really looking at me. It's looking away from me. But it's kind of like, moving around. I guess it's realizing, wait, everything around me is lit up, and then it turns its eyes or its face and looks at me, and its eyes get really wide, like in shock and surprise. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking it's saying, oh no, it sees me. And then it just runs up the dirt road. And from my perspective, I can see a good 200-300 feet, no problem. And it just clears this distance just impossibly fast. I mean, it's like cartoonish almost. Like my brain can't even wrap around it. It's just boom, 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 gone. This entire time that I'm staring at this thing, like I'm in shock. I can't move from this position of shining the light on. I'm just frozen completely and entirely. But once I can't see it anymore, I snap out of it. So I run back into the house, and I am freaked out. Like I can't even begin to experience or to like explain how scared and freaked out I was at this point. But yeah, I do what any good Alabamian would do and grab my pistol, rack around in the chamber, and I'm standing like this in front of the door. I'm just waiting for any noise at all. And if I hear anything, I'm going to unload all 17 rounds through the walls at this thing. I don't care. And, I say for comedic relief here is it's a good thing my wife doesn't snore, because that night, well, she might have got unalived. Good thing that wasn't a thing. But not a peep from her, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't know how long I stood there freaked out and just waiting. Like I say probably 15 minutes, but like I don't know. Like when you're at that level of fear, man, it just feels like an eternity. But the interesting thing was eventually I heard a voice. And it was like it was coming from all around me, but yet also being broadcast into my head. Like I could feel stuff happening here and here in the middle. Like, this is frontal lobe. This
Mhm.
is pituitary gland. Like I feel all this kind of stuff coming online. And yet it sounds like it's also all around me. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know the right adjectives for you guys out there. But I remember like its voice was very not necessarily definable by a gender. Like it was neither male nor female. It was very androgynous sounding, actually. And what it said to me, I'll never forget this. This is an exact quote. If I'm lying, I'm dying. This is exactly what it said to me. It said, if I wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. Go back to sleep now. And as if this terror happening could not get any worse, the worst part of all of this happens. Because suddenly, I no longer have control of my body at all. Like I start moving. I take the magazine out of the pistol. I rack the bullet out of the slide. I put everything down on the couch and start walking towards the bed. And like I said, like I'm here. I'm present during this. Like I'm like a captive in my own brain. I am screaming at myself.
Mm.
Stop. Don't listen to it. You have to stay there and protect everyone. You cannot listen to it. Don't go back to sleep. I have no control, no power at all to do anything to stop this. And I crawl into the bed. And it's just like somebody flipped a switch on a light bulb, just out.
Wow.
Just out. And then, the next thing I know is it's morning and I'm waking up and it's like the switch gets flicked again. And I'm just, all that terror, all that adrenaline just floods me and I'm just freaked out. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Where is it at? What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got to pee really bad too. What's going on? Like just trying to wrap my brain around it. It's daylight out. It's like, I got to go to school. Like, what just happened? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it took me days to get over that, man. Like, I was just so scared and jumpy. Anybody would come up to talk to me and say something, I'd just jump out of my skin.
Mm. What'd your brain like? For me, there's always like an initial, your brain classifies it. So it's searching for something to classify what you're looking at.
Right.
Then you have a time of processing, and that can be extensive. I'm still processing the ferry incident.
Right.
I think I got some resolution this past weekend. But so initially, did your brain classify it like alien or Bigfoot? And then after you went through all of the emotional highs and lows and you settled in, then what did you classify in your train of thought?
Right. Alien. Like,
okay.
There was no other explanation for me at the time that I could really latch onto, because like I said, I saw this thing in full relief. Like when it turned its head to look at me, like its eyes were literally reflecting back the flashlight at me. I don't think it was like a tapetum lucidum kind of thing of normal eye shine, because it seemed like almost like maybe a lens or something over its eye, because its entire eye was lit up from just the flashlight.
Okay.
And that's how I could tell it went, oh, it sees me, like the shock look.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you see it in such stark relief, and then it, for lack of a better word, possesses you, like there's not enough mental gymnastics in the world for me to pour this into a different cup,
Right.
you know. But you know, it kind of eventually set me down a path that was not good for me. You know, it's like aliens are real, all this stuff is real, there is no God, they're all aliens. Like, this defines everything now, you know, and that's the path that I took for the longest, you know. And the thing that I didn't understand at that time also was, you know, making that initial contact was basically like playing with a Ouija board on all the steroids. Like, I opened up a door into my life. I wanted contact to come and make contact with me. I want to have interactions with you, you know. And suddenly that became my life for years. I mean, and it ran the gambit too. Like, you would expect, okay, probably going to have a couple more alien stories. Yes, I have a few more of those that are very interesting. You wouldn't expect Bigfoot. You wouldn't expect Dogman. You wouldn't expect like a humanoid shadow entity, you know, that's not alien shaped, but like human. You know, I don't remember it wearing a hat. But the point is like, it opened up a door into my life for whatever flavor of strange was out there. If it wanted to interact with me, it was like there was no boundaries anymore. It would just come and interact, you know. And it took me years to really kind of get fed up with it. Like, I mean, it all bothered me. Yes. Like, it would take me some time to get over it. I mean, shoot, to this day, I can still think about and feel where one of those shadow entities put its hand and left a bruise on my back and woke me up to like the pain and electrical feeling of this thing. Like, I can still feel that, you know. But it took me so long to just wrap my head around it all, you know. But eventually, through all the stuff that I saw and experienced, you know, I'm still basically going down a path of research. Like, I've got to define it. You know, I've got to wrap my head around it totally. You know, and I went down all the paths, man, and some of them did really good job of explaining a lot of it, but it never explained it all. Like, I could never put that bow tie on it.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
I had a bow tie moment, and it was only God given.
Exactly.
I was the fairy sighting, Bigfoot encounters, you know, and then I remember right where I was. There's this little space between my garage and my house, and I'm just like, God, what is going on with all this? These things, these crazy, this stuff. What's going on with all this Bigfoot stuff? And immediately, you know, God doesn't have to open up the sky and, oh, my son, wherefore art thou?
Trumpets and angels.
Right. I will now bestow you with the knowledge from upon high. No, he just, boom, right in my brain. Bryan, look up how many different types of insects there are. So right now I've got that pulled up on Google search. And it says between 2.6 million and 10 million total insect species living on planet Earth. Nice. Right then, I knew he was saying, hey, Bryan, outside of your own little personal sphere, there's a whole plethora of stuff going on. And I knew then, too, growing up in Birmingham, Michigan, I had a very simple, wonderful childhood. So when I think of that and the insects I dealt with as a child, ants, mosquitoes, grasshopper, flies, and bees. There you go, all said on one hand. And now I'm finding out there's 2.6 million and 10 million different types of insects. He's saying to me, hey, Bryan, these entities
Mhm.
have progenerated multiple different species. We don't know how many years. This
Yep.
blows like our God love our brothers, the creationist idea, who think the Earth is only 6 to 7,000. And if you believe that, that's cool. I can't debunk that. I can't debunk if it is millions, billions of years old. All I'm saying is somehow, and right now I'm kind of relying on the Enochian Book of Enoch theory that the fallen realm basically got a hold of all of God's creation and started perverting it and making their own different types of aberrations, and the Book of
Correct.
Enoch
Yeah.
it says the 200 angels came down, got it on with
Yes.
earthly women. Then they got it on with all sorts of different creatures and animals and started spawning
They
giants,
corrupted
not only
all
giants,
flesh.
but monsters. Yeah, so
Yes.
all of that. So that explains all these different types of aliens, different types of Bigfoot, different
Yes.
types of Greek mythology. Cyclops could be real. Right here, I've got Beowulf. I talk about this stuff all the time. Grendel from Beowulf. That could have been an ogre or a Bigfoot. So,
Oh, it's 100% a Bigfoot. Yeah.
oh yeah. So
Yeah.
I think we're just kind of getting back to maybe knowledge lost, and
Yeah.
so then you throw in what you're talking about, like, okay, there's almost like an alien, or what we would register in our brain, like I was saying. You first identified it in your brain as an alien.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we process it out, is it still in the alien category?
Right. And that's the thing, like I said, it took me years to come to that conclusion. I remember exactly where I was and what I was listening to when, that realization just hit me like a ton of bricks, and, it also kind of overarches into what I do now because I was listening to a podcast when it hit me. I to be fair, shout out, I was listening to Tony Merkel, The Confessionals. He had on L.A. Marzulli.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the catalyst right there. It was like, bro, this world is crazy. It's never not been crazy. You need to look at it and do the research, and that was the thing for me. It's like, you know what? I think they're probably onto something because, all the stuff that I know from back when I was living that way is kind of clicking pretty hard right now. And it became like a whole, okay, the hang-ups that I have. Am I brave enough to go and look at those hang-ups? Like he's saying, go back with different translations. Context is everything, and so much context is lost in the translation process. That doesn't make it bad. It just means like for instance, King James Version, right? Like the English language at that time is not even what it is now. Clearly, we got a lot of these and thous and all that stuff going on there. But how much was lost from that? From, say, the original Greek?
Oh, yeah.
Let alone Hebrew, Aramaic, and all that? Like, these hang-ups that I have or had, does it get solved by me actually looking at that verse in the original context and having an understanding of the words that are being used? And what does that do to me then? Like, if my hang-ups are no longer hang-ups, what does that mean for me? Am I brave enough to do that?
That's it, man.
And that's exactly what I did. And all of a sudden, it's like, man, this guy looks pretty genocidal. Oh, wait a second. You mean he's only saying to go after the Raphaim that's living amongst the Canaanites and that have interbred and made more hybrids? What happened to Canaan? Oh, they were free to go? You can go home, or, please go home, or you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here kind of thing? Like, oh.
Yeah,
wait
Luke
a
20.
second.
Yeah, Luke 21:11 is a classic example of that, where Jesus says, "Hey, in the last days, I brought up this verse before.
Mhm.
Um, let me get this right. Make sure I'm not hacking the Bible like I do
Sure.
so often.
Same.
Let's see, Luke 21:11. And great
Mhm.
earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. Luke 21:11.
Mhm.
And to your point, Jim, that fearful sights in the original Greek, as you probably already know, is the word phobotron. And what is
Yes.
the correct translation of phobotron? Monsters. And then if you go on down, to farther break it down a little bit, and great signs shall there be from heaven. Well, that goes, the word from is apo, and orenos is from heaven. So things coming from the heavens. So if we
Correct.
want to paraphrase and not putting words in Jesus's mouth, but just going with the original Greek translation, we could almost say that, and in the last days there'll be great earthquakes, shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences, and monsters you shall see, aka Bigfoot, Dogman, and great signs or UFOs and aliens there shall be coming out of the heavens.
Correct. Just like in the days of Noah, as
Mm.
Jesus said, right? So, yes. Yes, that is the thing, man. It's like, for
What's our
me,
what's our hangups? Here's boy.
right. Go
You
ahead.
said something that just spawned this question.
Sure.
Why can't we let go of our hangups? Why can't we accept the truth of what God is telling us and actually foretelling us and warning us about? Why do I have to transpose that and say, oh, I don't want it to be that? I want to believe in what I want to believe. But yet I can drive to work, like I was saying before, every day and obey every stop sign and obey every red light because I'm afraid I'm going to get a ticket or hurt myself or hurt someone. I can abide to that little law, but I
Hmm.
can't abide to what the Almighty God has just given us a shout out saying, hey, I just want to let you know it's going to be like the days of Noah in the last days. Well, I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that we are seated from our loving alien brothers. All right. And see, this is where I got to stop being a jerk. I have to
I
understand
mean,
that people have a right to believe what they want to believe. All I'm saying is, hey, everybody, just please be careful and reconsider, because when it comes down to it, this is based on our loving Father God giving us a free will, wanting us to have freedom, but also be a part of his loving family. And then all these
mhm.
other spoiled, and that's the only way I can put it together, Jim, is these spoiled entities who wanted no part of God's system of doing his way of doing things, decide they
Yeah.
wanted to come up with their own system, and they have tainted and perverted everything that was supposed to be loving, truthful, honest, pure, kind. They have
Mm.
tainted all that. So
All
if
of
you're,
it.
yeah,
All
so
of
I didn't mean to get
creation.
on a tangent, but God loves
No,
us so much. And we
no,
just want
you
to
got
throw
it.
out the warning sign there that, hey, this is what could be going on.
Right. No, I mean, you nailed it right on the head, man. I mean, here's the thing. Pride cometh before the fall.
Mm,
And there's a lot of our pride getting in here. I mean, just take a look once again at the little microcosm of where we like to find entertainment from, like in just the Bigfoot area. You know, monkey, interdimensional woo thing.
mm,
Like we clash really hard. And that's just over like the silliest of things. Now
mm.
we want to talk about the direction of somebody's life. Like, I mean, you get prideful and wrapped up in just your own idea. I mean, do I even need to bring up politics and how much we get into that?
Right,
Like,
right. Yeah,
right? I
religion and
mean, it's
politics
all
and
about the free will, man. And if I don't know why some of us, will look at something dangerous like a lion or a tiger and be like, you know what? I'd be friends with that. And sometimes people just do the same thing to this stuff too. Like,
mm,
this is my favorite monkey monster hanging out in the woods. He's a big dude. He's pretty scary. Smells terrible. But you know what? He's pretty nice to me. He's never really hurt me. Not understanding that, yes, he's never hurt you because there is law set into place that he is unable to go past a certain point unless you come into agreement for more. Hence what I did with my CE5. I wanted the contact. I came into agreement. It was a spiritual contract that I made while I was in my spiritual body, astral projecting out there with these entities. Come hang out. I want to talk. I want to know you. You make that that leap, so to speak, and take that a little bit further with something like a Bigfoot. And I wouldn't be surprised if you end up in the book of Missing 411. Because people want to sit here and play mental gymnastics like, oh no, the Native Americans traded with them. Like they were cool. They were cool here. Like, no. Go back further. Yeah, there's accounts of trading, but there's also accounts of raiding. And please, I would love to hear the answer. If they did not trade with them when they wanted to be traded with, what happened? This was every single tribe's boogeyman. If you want to disagree, feel free, but I dare you to look back a little bit further and see if there wasn't a change in that narrative. Because this is the story, not just here in America, but all over the world. Every single continent on this planet has a story of these big, hairy creatures that, when you look at it, looks a lot like Bigfoot. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe, just maybe, that Gigantopithecus blackie is the best swimming hominid to have ever existed. And that's why it's on every single continent. It really likes beaches, and then beaches get filled up, and it's like, well, I'm going to go find me another beach. And oh, by the way, I smell this bad because I'm trying my best to repel sharks so I don't get ate on this transatlantic adventure over yonder. Like, maybe. Bering Sea Bridge. Like, bro, there's stories of these things in Hawaii. In freaking Lost Islands. I mean, apers want to sit here and be like, all these other cryptids don't exist. It's just misinterpreted sightings of Bigfoot. Okay. Tell me how all these other places that are not connected by land have the same story or have something that's close enough. And that doesn't even go to begin to go into like Dogman. Like I can sit here and go on that for a while. Yep. You know, I'm trying to boil this down to the lowest common denominator and just say Bigfoot, for instance, right? Well, okay, Jim. Well, what's Bigfoot? I'm glad you asked. I don't know, but my own personal opinion that I will not argue with anybody with or get upset with if you wish to contradict or try to get upset with, because I don't care. At the end of the day, it does not define me. I only know these things by their fruit, and that speaks loudly enough. But everybody likes the whole Sumerian story about the Anunnaki and all that stuff, right? Well, let's look at the Epic of Gilgamesh. All right, we see this Gilgamesh, also mentioned in the Book of Giants, by the way, and pseudepigraphal text and all that crazy coincidence there, but whatever. We are told that Gilgamesh was actually special. He's a royale, right? He is 2/3 divine. He's not just half, he's 2/3. So it's been bred back, right? So their little pantheon, what the Bible would actually call the sons of God that were put over the nations after Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel, have control of this area. And if that's not making sense, Deuteronomy 34, I think, better explains that. But anyways, we're talking about Anunnaki. So they decide, for grins and giggles from really, I mean, like they give some reasons, but to me, it's like grins and giggles. They want to create a being that can rival Gilgamesh strength-wise. Now, I don't know what that looks like to be able to handle and stand on equal terms with something that is 2/3 divine. I don't know, but I think you're going to take something really strong here and use that as your base, your building blocks, because we know that these things cannot speak things into existence, right? It seems like they are creating with technology because they have an understanding of how creation works because they were there when God did it, and they're spiritual beings too. They don't have the same power, but they can understand and be like, okay, well, in order to do something like that, we're going to have to play with some genetics here, which is why ancient alien people are like, it's technology, it's not magic. Correct, you're right. But magic is also just technology that we haven't explained yet. So we're talking about the same stuff. They're talking about, in their story, genetically modifying something. Probably a gorilla, probably a Gigantopithecus, actually. Like, if we want to be like for realsies about it, the biggest ape that we have on record would be that. So you're going to take the genetics of that, and then what do? If I'm not mistaken, it's either Inky or Enlil. I'm pretty sure it's
Inkadoo. I've got the book right here.
Exactly. They take Inky's genetics and mix it into that, and they make Inky do.
Mm-hmm.
And what is he? He is this gigantic wild man of the woods, right? So, I mean, this has often been stylized in different ways throughout history, but I mean, just take the basic words at face value. You're talking about a wild man of the woods.
Yep.
That's really big and really strong. And oh, by the way, before he gets to meet Gilgamesh, he's given to some handmaiden, which, if I'm not mistaken, was a chick, like an actual human. And they're like, hey, teach him how to be a creature, not just a wild beast. Like, teach him the luxuries of life and all of its pleasures. Wow. Right there is how you genetically propagate that line. All its pleasures. And keep in mind, if we are looking at this as post-flood, because this is the only way that these Anunnaki would have sovereignty over this area. So it would have to be post-flood.
Yeah.
That's the only way it works. So, and notice that in all of those stories, they're not taking humans in marriage anymore, which is a very important point. No, they do it like the same way that it is talked about in Greek mythology, right?
Right.
Concord grapes, read between the lines. But that line gets propagated, right, through her. But the point is, they made that being genetically through technology, or you can even say alchemically, same thing. It's just different methods of achieving the same goal, which is why that all kind of links back up. Sorry, I don't make the rules, but just open your eyes and look, and you'll see I'm right. But that's what happens. They create this thing. Wild man of the woods, able to rival Gilgamesh. Like,
good.
Bro.
Yeah,
if that's not a Bigfoot, I don't know what is.
Right. There's your historical documentation. There's your paper trail. There's your evidence. And so all of us, I don't ever want to beat up. You have a free will to choose what you want to believe Bigfoot is and all this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
All we want to do, I think, Jim, you're kind of the same spirit I am. We just want to shine the light on some of these things and say, hey, this could be what's going on. This could be what's going on. The biblical narrative. We have the information. We have the data trail, the paper trail. And so I think people at home ultimately have to make up their own minds that they're going to be responsible for in the end.
Exactly.
So,
and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Jim, with that said, I got to get going only because I worked the midnight shift at Ford Motor Company. Nice. Man, I'd love to have you back for a part 2. I want to get on your podcast show as well. You're just a kindred spirit, man. We could talk all night long. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. Where can people find you at? How can they follow you? All of that.
Awesome. Well, you can find me on basically every single social media except for X. Elon apparently and his crew decided to ban me because I'm not human. I'm an AI spam bot that promote my shows. So everywhere except for X,
Gotcha.
you can find me there. But most importantly, if you want to see me and what I do, like I've documented all of my experiences. I have guests on too, just like this. I go out into the woods, outside of the Relic films, and do it myself with my own group of folks, and do everything I can to bring it back. The places I've been, I will say, are only places that have, come up on the show. Because for me, I have a bit of a philosophy of don't just talk about it, be about it. So there's that. But you can find me on YouTube. It's the Night's Watch podcast, and you'll see like a guy that's kind of like a edgy, super edgelord, kind of like wearing robes and crusader outfits. That's me. That's me. So yeah, come hang out.
Thanks, brother. I'm going to go ahead and put you back in the green room. I'll be
Sure
back
thing.
there in a moment, man. Jim, thanks so much. And yeah, I'm hoping you'll come back and we'll talk some more about some other different types of creatures. So
next time we'll talk about Dogman. How's that sound?
Oh, man, that'd be sweet. All right, brother.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, everybody, that is episode 82 with Jim Powell. Man, I can't thank him enough for being on the show. And as I said, there's probably so much more that him and I are going to discuss. And yeah, for everybody at home, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show. And until next time, we shall see you. Hey, yeah, catch us on Roku through the Bigfoot TV app. We're going to be building that platform over the next 2 years. It's going to be like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime where you can tune in to all things paranormal. All right, everybody, have a good night and see you next time.